हिरण्यवर्णां हरिणीं सुवर्णरजतस्रजां चान्द्रां हिरण्मयीं लक्ष्मीं जातवेदो महावः। ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरा गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Namaste everyone. So today's video is going to be on quite unusual topic. It is going to be on the topic of Ashta Mangala number, which is also used, in older Vedic astrology. And this video is actually an introduction to the webinar which I am having now available on my webpage to purchase if you would like really to learn more about this ancient method, because it's very, very beautiful, it's very accurate, and it's very simple. Even if your knowledge of astrology is fairly limited, you can still use it with actually great success if you are just attentive enough. And this workshop, or working with the Ashta Mangala number, is actually a part of much longer process which is known especially in Kerala, but also you can find it in many astrological scriptures, as Ashta Mangala prashna. Ashta means 8, Mangala means auspicious. And you will notice that actually number 8 itself will become very important in the entire process, as it is said not only in Jyotisha but also in Vastu that number 8 is actually connected to infinity. Right? Because we have these 8 primary influences, 8 primary planetary influences, which are actually binding us, and are producing some karma. So all the 8 planets are actually connected with, some sort of production of karma, while the 9th planet, Ketu, is just the liberator. He just liberates us from all the karma. So he is often actually not taken into consideration in methods like that. And Ashtamangala prashna is a very, very long and very old and very ancient process. And even though it is used also, for personal purposes, but originally Ashtamangala prashna was also called Deva prashna. Literally it means asking a question to the gods, asking question to God himself, and it was actually very often used in the temples. When people were facing any troubles in the temples, or where there were any calamities happening to the temples, or something was simply getting wrong, usually priests would call several astrologers, not just one, and they would ask them to perform Ashtamangala prashna, which was a series of different, let's say, kriyas. It's sometimes also called Ashtamangala kriya, or different actions which were supposed to determine like what God is maybe not pleased with, or what is the lesson here for the priests or for the people living around the temple. So originally it was used, to connect with the divine, to ask the divine, to ask God for guidance, what we can improve. And for me personally, this is also, the best use of astrology, because very often, in our times especially, we are mostly using astrology, for more materialistic purposes. People want to know when they're going to get married, when they're going to get a job, and things like that. But originally it was not what astrology was for. It was actually for, getting us closer to the divine, making us understand our own life lessons in a much deeper level, making us understand what can we learn from the present moment, what present moment actually requires from us. So what is very, very specific with the prediction method with using Ashtamangala number, that is a divination method, And what makes divination different from astrology? Because in astrology, Western astrology, Vedic astrology, you mostly depend on your own knowledge of interpretation of how planetary influences in the present moment affect the person right here, right now. So in Vedic astrology, you mostly depend on your own knowledge. And if your knowledge is not sufficient enough, or if your intuition is not sufficient enough, then you're going to fail in your prediction. However, divination works actually slightly differently, Because in divination, it's true, with working with Ashtamangala number, we will be using mostly Vedic numerology, so-called. And we will be also looking at the chart of a present moment. We will be looking also at the chart of a person. However, here in divination method, we mostly depend on certain omens, certain signs which universe itself is providing us. And fascinating thing, you know, with this specific method of seeing the present moment or even seeing the future, is that here you don't depend that much on your knowledge. You actually exclusively depend on the divine guidance. You exclusively depend on what you see in the present moment. Because you will see that in Ashta Mangala method, you don't depend anymore just on what you see, you know, or, you know, what numbers do you see, what you see in the birth chart. You will observe the omens also. Do you hear any birds, you know, while you're doing your reading? Is something, you know, else specific happening? Is there any weather change, you know? You'll be seeing all those different things, and the omens will become very, very, very important because they're going to tell you something about what the present moment has to tell you, what the present moment has to reveal to you, because it is, you know, literally the universe itself is the manifestation of the divine. So when you see anything specific, when anything just caught your attention, it means that there is a message for you in that. And if you're doing reading for somebody else, obviously this message will be connected to other person. So here what will be very important is what you yourself observe. What is your personal observation? Because the beautiful thing you see with working with Ashtamangala number and generally using this sort of divination method is that universe already knows what you're going to see and what you are not going to see. You know? Universe already knows which omens you are going to perceive and how you're going to interpret them. Because obviously you see in different cultures, different omens, different birds, many different things mean many different things. But God knows from which culture you come from. And what is, let's say, a prejudice about certain omens there as well? What is the interpretation of certain omens there as well? And that's the entire beauty of it, you know? Because here in divination, you are mostly depending on the supreme observer within you. You see, in Vedas it is said that in the beginning of the entire creation, Lord Vishnu, he was just, you know, reclining on this great serpent Anantashesha, and he just slightly opened his eyes, you know, like he opened his eyes to half, and he just casted his glance on the world of matter. And this is how creation happened. So just by his mere glance, his mere attention, the creation happened. The life happened. And you see, this is something that even our modern quantum physics is confirming now, that actually it's not that important like what is real, what is not real, because what is the most important is what you see at the present moment, you as the observer, because this exact thing is creating your reality. This exact thing also has something to say to you. So this is also, you know, one very beautiful thing about this divination method, and which I always also say to everybody, because when you're doing this sort of divination, when you really just, you know, surrender to the divine within you, to this supreme observer within you, you know, he already knows, even if you're going to make some mistake in the reading, even if you're going to misunderstand something, he already knows that. And guess what? He will give you the exact symbols, the exact signs that you anyways make actually the reading correctly. That's the beauty of it, you know, because here you don't depend on your knowledge anymore. You know, don't even try to depend on your knowledge because it will not work with this method. You just need to surrender completely, you know, to this supreme observer within you, and you can be 100% sure that you will receive the right signs and that you will receive the right numbers and that you will receive the right answers for you or for the person for whom you're doing the reading. So this entire process, you know, of interpreting Ashtamangala number is actually, in my personal experience, one of the most accurate methods I ever came across, to be honest. And really this never failed me, you know, when you have an open mind, when you really ask, you know, God, when you ask your guru for guidance, you will really receive an answer. Because this process really allows you, you know, to see more clearly, you know, and to see the exact parts of the birth chart which require, you know, more attention for the person in the present moment. Because when you'll be interpreting, you know, all those different numbers and different properties of this number, you will receive certain planets as a result, certain nakshatras, certain tithis, certain days as well, you know, and they are going to tell you something about certain qualities and certain life lessons which are important in the present moment for the person. And they will also tell you whether it is auspicious to take some action or not. It was actually very fascinating and very humbling experience for me when I tried this method for the very first time, you know. It was very fascinating for me, so I just wanted to try that, but I didn't have any exact question, you know. No exact thing in which I was seeking guidance, so my question was just, you know, if universe has many message for me for the present moment. Any guidance, any tip, what can I improve in myself, you know? I am most willing to hear that answer. So I did this method, I performed the reading, and something that was unbelievably, you know, fascinating for me and shocking in a way is, you know, what reading has shown to me is that the exact, you know, lunar day that it showed to me, exact nakshatra it showed to me, exact day it showed to me were actually my birth details. It was my birth tithi, it was my birth nakshatra, it was my birth weekday. So it was, you know, because we very often know, you know, we know this with our mind, that God is always with us, that He is always, you know, observing the reality around us. But when you have experience like that, you really realize that you're actually being observed, that you can actually have a dialogue with the divine, that He is actually there, He knows you, you know, He knows you better than you know yourself. And this is why I love this method with Ashta Mangala number that much, because here you don't depend that much on your intellectual knowledge like in Vedic astrology. Of course you need to have some knowledge, you know, some sort of frame, but still you depend more on actual divine guidance. So like in every divination method, you know, in divination we are usually using some objects, right, to determine what the present moment has to tell to us. And in Ashta Mangala number method, we are specifically using cowrie shells. So cowrie shells are actually considered very, very sacred, and not only in Indian culture actually. In many other cultures, you can also see that these specific shells were considered very, very auspicious. Even in African culture, I believe, you know, that in some of the African cultures, people were even using it actually as money, as a currency. And it's very beautiful because they were considering, you know, like depending on how many of them were brought by the sea on the shore, this is how auspicious the country was. This is how prosperous the country was. So it's actually very beautiful. And even in Vedic culture, cowrie shells are strongly connected to Mother Lakshmi, to Goddess Lakshmi. In fact, you know, you can see around Mother Lakshmi very often in temples cowrie shells, and it is said that even just keeping them home, if they are properly blessed, they are also going to bring prosperity to such a home. And sometimes also they are called eyes of Shiva because of their special shape and how they look like. So for divination we are always using, because you have many different types of them, and for divination we are always using either white ones, which symbolize the purity, or the yellow ones, which are more connected to Jupiter, right, to his wisdom. And these cowrie shells, obviously, you know, in astrology, and astrologers were not perceiving them just as mere objects. It's not that you are just buying, you know, some cowrie shells and you immediately start to predict or do some sort of divination. In fact, always astrologer was supposed to actually worship them, worship the different nakshatras through them, worship the different planets through them. And even in fact in India you can see that people, you know, would actually give their cowrie shells, astrologers would give their cowrie shells into the temple, like for maybe 108 days or something like that. So when the priests are doing the prayers in the temple every single day, because the prayers in the temple, the pujas, the rituals keep going on every single day, that these cowrie shells can actually absorb this positive energy. So this is also very, very important to actually keep in mind, that these shells, you know, will also require, you know, some sort of spiritual activation. And the easiest way, obviously, if you have your own Sadguru, you know, self-realized master, he can actually just bless them for you, and that's the best that you can do. You can also give them to priests to bless them for you. You can also leave them in some temples, which are maybe close to the deity, which are, maybe they are dedicated to the deity which is close to your heart or your Ishtadevata, and things like that. You can obviously, if you know yourself how to do certain pujas, you can also do that by your own. But in general, you know, it's best if you can receive some sort of blessing into them, transfer some sort of spiritual energy into them, because this is how, you know, you will keep receiving guidance from them. So this is also what is very, very important, to treat them with certain respect. And usually astrologers had either, 27 of these shells or 28, which stand for, obviously, for the nakshatras, or 108 of them, which stands for 108 nakshatra padas. So that was just my short introduction video to the process of prediction with the help of Ashta Mangala number and Cowrie shells. And this was actually a part of a longer video and a longer workshop, which is available to purchase now on my website. And if you are interested in that, you are most welcome to do that. And I hope that at least this, what you have seen here, was at least a little bit helpful for you to understand what this process is all about. So thank you so much for watching, and namaste.